Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here, and I'm extremely honored to have the opportunity to share with you a few remarks of myself at the end of this already traditional pre-presidency conference. But first, before moving to the substance of my speech, let me thank to the organizers from the Institute of International Relations for arranging this event. Also the colleagues from TEPSA for their recommendations to the Czech presidency. I find them very useful, and I'm sure that we will gladly take them into account when discussing the priority and the content of the presidency internally. And also many thanks to all the panelists and their contributions, and all those who participate here at the conference at the Czernin Palace and contributed to the lively debate we've had. As Peter said, I'm now working on the presidency, so I will speak mainly about the presidency. And you would not be surprised if I say that we will be taking over the helm of the presidency from France in a very turbulent times. A war is raging violently just beyond the east border of the European Union. Energy prices, inflation are skyrocketing in a number of member states, and it seems that even the COVID pandemics is far from over, at least from the global perspective. So we are still recovering from that. And as we have started the presidency preparations, it was back in 2018. And then the negotiations with the trio partners started later on, around the first quarter of 2021. You might imagine that the Russians' aggression against Ukraine was a very critical turning point for our presidency planning. We needed immediately to adjust to the new reality. But at the same time, on the background of these imminent and urgent challenges, we will have to continue as the presidency working not only on these, but also on the long-term issues which are with us, like the digital transition, climate change, EU enlargement. I've just heard that. And we as the presidency must ensure that we as the EU are moving on all tracks ahead where a compromise between the member states is feasible. In the previous panel, we spoke about the future of the European integration. And when thinking about the direction of the steps we have ahead of us, we need to have a good understanding of our point of departure and from where we are going. In the past few years, the European Union went through a number of crises, be it the financial and banking turmoil back in 2011, 2015. Then the migration flows and waves provoked by the war in Syria hit Europe. Annexation of Crimea by Russia, then followed by the EU sanctions, exit of one of the member countries, not only from the EU but also from the EU economic area, and then the COVID pandemics. But then the EU, in reaction to all that crises, started working on banking union. Started the discussion on the future of the EU, initiated a reform of the asylum and migration policy of the EU, and even proceeded to something unimaginable in the past, which is issuing of the EU bonds to finance the economic recovery of Europe. And all these, in my eyes, proves the willingness of the member states to work together with the institutions actively, and it shows that we are able to act united and act efficiently when we are in crisis. I think that the European collective reaction to the dramatic events of the February 24th only confirms that. Keeping the unity of the EU and the spirit of working together on achieving the common objectives is a key, rather procedural, but a key task for the Czech presidency. The Russia's aggression against Ukraine has disturbed the European security architecture as we knew it for decades, and brought instability in Europe. But the war makes the EU to face not one crisis, as in the past, but several crises, better to say challenges at once. It's extremely complex. We see countless of refugees trying to find a shelter in Europe. Ukraine needs our financial and material support, which puts strain on our budgets. We are facing as Europe possible disruptions of energy supplies from Russia to the EU, and precisely these issues are now setting the scene for the Czech presidency. And supporting Ukraine and tackling the consequences of the Russia's aggression in Europe will naturally become a focus of my country's presidency. One must not forget that rotating presidency represents the member states sitting in the Council, and the Council as an institution doesn't act in vacuum. We have the European Council that provides the strategic guidance for the EU institutions, and only during the French presidency, the last 5 months, the European Council produced 2 sets of very crispy conclusions with the concrete steps on defense, energy security, refugees or humanitarian relief to Ukraine, and at least 2 further sets of the conclusions will come out in May and June. The Commission, in the meantime, published or submitted concrete plans on how to address the Ukraine's financial gap, meaning how to provide with the cash to Ukraine, on how to finance the reconstruction of Ukraine, which will be a very long process. And in its Repower EU package, the Commission came up with a few ideas on how to end the dependence of EU on the Russia's energy resources. Besides that, we still have on the table the Commission's working program for 2022, which speaks very eloquently about the energy security, defense union, need of working together with the partners in the Gulf, in the Gulf countries, or bringing to life the new Global Gateway Initiative. All that together with the strategic agenda of the European Council and the TRIO program, which we worked on with our TRIO partners back in 2021. This creates the framework. We are now planning the presidency, and we are considering the concrete works which we will be working on within the Council, while at the same time we will have to take into account the EAS, with which as the institution we will have to coordinate our steps on the external affairs policy issues, and also taking account the role of the European Parliament in everything that relates to the legislation. That brings me back to the Czech Presidency. We are prepared to work hard to contribute to delivery of all the commitments made, and moving very quickly on the proposals we have just now on the table by the Commission, be it on Ukraine, defense, or energy security. You might have heard in the beginning of the conference that the official national working program and the key political priorities will be published in mid-June. And immediately after that, we will discuss it together with the conference of the presidents of the political parties of the European Parliament, which will be at that time in Prague. And until then, the work on the priorities and the program is still ongoing and will continue. So I will not go into much detail on that. But what's obvious from the public debate and from the commitments already adopted by the Council, the EU's commitment to helping Ukraine will continue, and the Czech Presidency will be ready to do utmost in order to facilitate provision of the necessary immediate and urgent help to Ukraine. But besides these short-term help should be complemented with more strategic approach, which at least in our eyes is based on two key pillars. First, that's the reconstruction of Ukraine, which is a long-term endeavor, and we want to focus on reconstruction of critical infrastructure and the provision of base services. Secondly, that's the European perspective for Ukraine. Here we are waiting for the Commission's avis very impatiently. Once we have it on the table, we will be ready to work on that speedily. To support open discussion on the fate of Ukraine, and now I mean on the both issues, reconstruction and European perspective, we are going to organize here in Prague, at the end of the summer recess, high-level event called Forum for Ukraine. It will be in the margins of the Gymnich Council, so we hope for attendance of the ministers, but then it will be followed by a longer event which will be opened to public, academics, representatives of the business, so you will be invited to take part into that. Looking still to the east, I will not go very much into details, but I cannot but mention at least two issues, and that's the Eastern Partnership Policy. We will definitely have to look at it, what to do with the policy as such in the new context. And obviously also on Russia. We will want to keep pressure on Russia, working on implementation of the sanctions and bringing the people responsible for the atrocities committed in Ukraine to the international court. Just to complement very briefly the picture of the Czech Presidency's ambitions in the external domain, let me mention by a few areas we will want to concentrate on. Notably, given the current circumstances, we will want to invest much energy into building up the partnership with the United States, European Union and the United States, European Union and the NATO, transatlantic partnership. That's something what for us is necessary to do. We will also want to approach truly geopolitically to the Western Balkans. where in order to preserve our values and the security, we think it's necessary to cooperate with the regional partners more closely, especially those aligned with the CFSP. We will also be committed to promoting progress on the EU accession of the Western Balkans countries and its integration through the sectoral cooperation. And we will also want to work on the issue of reconciliation. Following to the adoption of the Indo-Pacific strategy by the EU a year ago, we, as the Czech Presidency, will want to increase the EU's strategic engagement with the Indo-Pacific like-minded countries and work with them mainly in the domains of defense, human rights, and connectivity, also in the context of the implementation of the global gateway initiatives. To that purpose, I will mention another event which we will want to organize or is already in our pipeline. It will happen very soon, still before the Czech Presidency in mid-June. Which will be a high-level dialogue on Indo-Pacific, which will bring together the representatives of the EU countries and also those from the Indo-Pacific at the ministerial level and also at the lower level to brainstorm on anything we can do with our Indo-Pacific partners. Getting back to the initiatives of the European Council and the new proposals of the European Commission, one can guess that there is another important issue, and that is energy security. The Repower package contains specific suggestions on what the EU should do internally and also externally in order to put an end to the imports of fossil energy from Russia. And our role as a presidency will be to organize and manage all those debates on such pertinent issues as how to refill our storages and have them full for the coming winter, how to facilitate the reverse flows of gas within the EU, or how to bring new, fresh deliveries from partners around the globe to Europe. All that to ensure that the energy will not be used as a weapon against Europe anymore. Here, let me conclude after having briefly touched upon the past crisis, the Czech Presidency's ambitions. Let me shortly turn to the future, perhaps a little bit beyond the Czech Presidency lifespan. Over the past few weeks, several prominent EU leaders have publicly come out with favorable opinions on possible amendments of the treaties. Some were even suggesting creating a sort of European political community, and the European Parliament quite recently started a discussion on the future of common foreign and security policy. It clearly shows that the EU is a very dynamic project and is in constant motion. The Brexit, COVID pandemic, combined together with the Russian invasion to Ukraine, are obvious triggers for strategic discussion on the future of the EU, and it will be very interesting to follow it and to be part of it. My last comment, that's on the European Conference on for Future of the Europe. Because it's very important endeavor in the reflection about the future of the Europe. As it has been stated here many times, it has delivered plenty of proposals that will have to be thoroughly discussed. For the time being, all the options are still on the table. purely from the methodological point of view, I think we should move swiftly only on those proposals that can be implemented rather quickly. But in that respect, what will be very instrumental for us as the presidency will be the outcome of the June General Affairs Council and the European Council, which will hopefully provide us with more guidance on that. So here I would stop. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you again to organizers for arranging this interesting event. And thank you again.
Well, let me thank you again, Mr. Director. I think we could not wish for a better concluding speech of our conference. So thank you for your presence here. And of course, let me wish you on behalf of the whole TEPSA Association the best of not only luck, but best of success with the Czech presidency. Thank you. Thank you. So, and we are almost at the end of our conference, and we have just brief, don't be afraid, brief concluding remarks by our newly elected chairwoman of TEPSA, Lucia Mokra, and then myself, and then we'll go for lunch. So, Lucia, please.
Thank you very much. I was aware that it will be short, so really like concluding short remarks. And let me build a little bit on ideas which had been presented in this room and another in the last 2 days. We have used to say that we are facing some number of challenges, you know, since 2008 crisis, 2015 crisis, and so on. But I believe that 2022 just show us what is a real challenge. I mean, it get us to the situation that the EU had to be considered as the project, and we had to get back to the roots of the establishment of the European communities. And here I have to mention that the European Union has to be built as a peace project. And of course, the first areas of cooperation had been focused on economic cooperation, rebuilding, reconstruction of Europe after the Second World War. But any cooperation had to be always built if you have partners who share the same values. And it means that the values had to be underlined also today. The European Union is as strong as it is able not only to agree on that values, but also as it is able to sustain with that values. Today, even more than before, we have to stick together. And as mentioned during the conference, the values should be the leading in the decision-making in the policies. Human rights and peace in the conflict in Ukraine, solidarity in the energy policy, rule of law and democracy in the enlargement and neighborhood, and respect for international law and international obligations in asylum and the refugee ones. I understand that the European Union is dealing with a number of internal challenges as well. Democratic backsliding, populism, and the rule of law conditionality, which bring us to a number of internal discussion. But as I mentioned before, we live the times where it is extremely important to send a clear message outside. We are Europeans, not individuals. And this is very important to say that we are not only building the ideas, we are here and we are able to and capable to implement them. And that's very important in such a sense as well. So it means that we have to be here for our citizens and to hear the voices which are coming from the Conference on the Future of Europe. We have to be here for our partners and enforce that common values. And finally, we have to be here for everyone who share that values and who is really focusing on its implementation. Today, we need to support, expressly formulate, and implement such ideas in the practice. The European Union as a peace project should be therefore understood today as a peace project for Europe, not for the European Union only. So it means rather in a broad sense. The peaceful, democratic, and human rights respectful future rely on that values. And let's continue, everyone in this room, to contribute to that systematically, but also individually. So it means by expertise, by practical implementation, by raising awareness, as it had been heard in the last 2 days in these rooms. Everyone can take part on it. The future of European Union and the future of Europe as a peace project is in the hands of everyone. And I believe that TEPSA, the expertise and the implementation, can contribute to that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lucia. And also, final few words from myself as the main organizer of the conference. So let me just briefly reminisce. You know, I'm already, somebody told me that you have to be 50 to reminisce, which I'm not, but I will, because I remember I was already at the Institute at the time of our last pre-presidency conference that took place in 2008, and I was, as a relatively young post-PhD guy, the main organizer of that conference as well. And I remember, paradoxically, that the main topic of the conference was the European Union and the crises, in 2008. And then just after that, what came in 2009, I don't know if you remember that, was what we at that time called the Ukrainian crisis, right? But there was, of course, we didn't understand what a real crisis is. But at the time, it was the gas crisis, there was the shuttle diplomacy, etc. And that also explains, Frank, your question about the strange, and it was kind of ironic self-allusion to the final panel of that conference, because it was also the European Union after the crisis with a question mark. So I think we can continue in this practice for quite some time. But of course, much happened in the meantime. The world is a different place. TEPSA is twice as big today as it was in 2008 and 2009, and the EU is a different animal too. And of course, while the challenges we are facing are perhaps more daunting than ever, I'm really confident that TEPSA, in its special way, is contributing to solving, or at least addressing, assessing some of these challenges. And I very much hope that our conference here in Prague has also contributed to this goal. So let me thank the organizers again, the whole team, both at TEPSA Secretariat and here in Prague. My colleagues know that sometimes I'm an unbearably bossy person when organizing something, but we have survived. And above all, I want to thank you for taking part in the conference and making it the success that I believe it has been. So thank you very much. Thank you.